this is an important subject. The motivations for the BDCP are both noble as well as venal. And Paul, I think, to his credit, has given us the view of the noble aspirations of the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, which is, at least on its nobility side, an attempt to try and recover species that are endangered or that are important economic species and iconic species for California, fishery species. And so that's a good thing. But I want to talk a little bit about the venal, because somebody has to talk about it, even though I'm by nature a charitable person. There is, the folks who are on the hook potentially for paying at least part of the bill here are the folks in Southern California and some Bay Area cities, as well as the balance of the water, the huge amount of water that goes to the west side of the San Joaquin Valley and the state project lands around the southern San Joaquin Valley around Bakersfield. And I think it's important to understand why those folks are interested in the BDCP. The State Water Project is only about half of the water that it has contracts for. And there's an aspiration by the folks who have paid for those contracts to have water delivered. And there's, in the Central Valley Project, it's generally a bit more capable, but at least there are some water districts, very notable and powerful and well-known water districts in the Central Valley Project on the west side of the San Joaquin Valley that don't get their full contract amounts, even in good years. So there is an aspiration on those folks' part to get more water out of the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project. And that's an understandable aspiration, but then there are consequences to Northern California rivers and Northern California water resources that I think are often swept aside by the notion that we hear from the department that don't you worry your pretty little heads about all this, because we're not changing state water rights and therefore don't worry. Well, that's true. The BDCP does not do that. But it does open up the bottleneck, potentially, to the ability to transfer more water from the north to the south. And that is indeed one of its most obvious purposes. The question then becomes, well, what does that mean? And the other assurance we get is, don't you worry your pretty little heads about this, because the governance and the rules that we're going to create to govern these massive new diversions will protect Northern California, well, protect the Delta and protect Northern California water resources. And yet I don't think that Northern California folks are convinced that the department and the Central Valley Project have engaged and provided those kinds of assurances. As a river group, we're looking at two kinds of implications to the project. And one is, hey, what happens downstream of the dams? Is the ability to divert more water physically going to result in more water ending up in San Luis Reservoir and in the fields of the San Joaquin Valley and in the wonderful places of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and leaving reservoirs on average lower? And one could model as much as one wants to model, but fundamentally, the question is, how does the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project wish to operate their projects? And there is no area of origin rights within the CVP and within the State Water Project. If you're a contractor in the South, you have every bit as much right to water as your fellow contract person to the north. There are some complexities to that, but fundamentally that's the case. And right now, Southern California contractors don't get as much water as folks to the north do because it's kind of bottled up in the north. The Delta is a bottleneck. The other issue that concerns Friends of the River is, what does that mean to the feasibility of more dam projects and diversion projects from the North State? The missing eel, the State Water Project, is on the Eel River, a wild and scenic river, and there's a famous dam right north of Folsom that is not really feasible to construct at this point, but you know, if there's a nice straight shot through the Delta, maybe it might be. So those are the concerns that we have, and I think Northern California generally have.